What's up, mamas? Welcome to the Sensory Systems series. I received quite a few requests from you guys asking for videos on our sensory systems, how they work, and some signs or potential indicators that maybe your child is having difficulty regulating their sensory system or systems. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, starting off with our visual sensory system. Quick note before we get going, I've put together a link down in the description box below that will take you to awesome resources such as games and toys that are wonderful for developing your child's visual perceptual skills. So if you're interested in learning more about that, click the link down in the description box. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you do that and hit the bell notification button. That way you guys aren't missing out on any of the future sensory system videos. All right, mamas, let's get into it. So let's start with the basics, such as what are senses? Senses can be described as the brain's ability to process information from the surrounding environment, also referred to as perceiving. So each of our senses is comprised of a system of sensory cells, which correspond with a specific part of our brain, which receives signals and is then interpreted. So today we're focusing on our sense of sight and how it's affected by sensory processing disorder. And sensory processing disorder can be described as the brain having difficulty receiving or interpreting the information that is coming through our senses. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but for those of you who are really interested in how the visual process works, the sensory cells for vision are called photoreceptors. And there's two types of photoreceptors. We have rods and we have cones. Rods are sensitive to light, while cones help us detect color. So vision happens when these photoreceptors detect light on the retina, which then basically sends a signal to the brain to interpret the image that is being seen. So with the rods, we're gonna have how bright is it, how dark is it, and with the cones, we're gonna see how vibrant the colors are or how dull the colors are. So when we're talking about someone who has a visual sensory processing disorder, we're talking about someone's ability to cognitively take in the information they're receiving through their eyes and interpret it. And this is also known as visual perception. So I'm going to briefly describe different types of visual processing dysfunctions, and then I'll jump into some potential signs or symptoms that your child might be demonstrating if they're having difficulty with their visual processing. So the first dysfunction is visual discrimination. So an example of a visual discrimination dysfunction would be if your child is confusing letters like D and B versus P and Q. The second type of dysfunction is called a visual figure ground discrimination. And an example of this would be trying to pick an item out of a background. So if you have a deck of cards and you spread them out on the ground and you ask your child to find the 7 of hearts, are they able to find that particular card amongst other cards in the background, or are they not able to see that 7 of hearts because there's so much going on around that card? The third type of dysfunction is visual motor processing. And this is basically our ability to coordinate our hand and eye movement. So what we're seeing in the world, we're coordinating with our body parts. So throwing a ball to someone, this is a good example of visual motor processing. Are we throwing the ball right on target, or are we missing completely because there's something happening with how we're taking in the visual information and how our brain is interpreting it? The fourth type of dysfunction is a long or short-term visual memory recall. So this would just be remembering what you saw, maybe a game of memory. So if you take a deck of cards and maybe you only use 8 or 10 cards at a time. So you have 4 pairs or 5 pairs, and you're asking your child to recall where a certain pair was. So the next type of visual dysfunction is called visual spatial. And this would be your child's ability to navigate in an environment. So maybe, for example, you come home, you walk through the front door, and you ask your kid to take their backpack to their room. Are they able to easily navigate where their room is in relation to the rest of the house? Or are they getting lost? Are they going into the bathroom? Are they turning left instead of right? So your ability to navigate your environment. The next type of dysfunction is called visual closure. So our visual closure skills are our ability to recognize parts of a whole. For example, if you're looking at this image right now, most of us would recognize this as an airplane. Even though the lines aren't solid and the image is broken, we're able to visually close the spaces to make an image. And the final visual dysfunction would be letter or symbol reversal, which is also known as dyslexia. So here are some potential indicators that your child may be suffering from visual processing disorder. If he or she demonstrates sensitivity to light, if he or she is easily distracted by visual stimuli, if you see your child squinting or rubbing their eyes often, if they have trouble finding items even when the item is right in front of them, if you notice that they get headaches after engaging in a visually stimulating activity, if they have difficulty maintaining eye contact, if they have trouble demonstrating between letters, shapes, or symbols, if they demonstrate difficulty with handwriting, and this may include letter reversal, spacing, or alignment of letters, if they lose their place easily while reading, if they're bumping into items, if they're slow or hesitant with stairs, and finally, if they're having difficulty distinguishing left versus right. So of course, if your child is suffering from any of these symptoms or signs, this can affect their academic skills, their emotional life, as well as their basic life skills. If your child is demonstrating one or multiple of these signs or symptoms, I would recommend first having your child's vision assessed by a pediatric optometrist, and then consider reaching out to an occupational therapist, because an occupational therapist will be able to perform an assessment to determine if your child is indeed having difficulties with visual processing skills. If you're interested in learning more about this or discussing potential concerns that you have with your child, I am available for one-on-one consults. I will leave the information in the description box below. All right, mamas, that's gonna do it for our very first video in the Sensory Systems series. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the future videos, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.